Good evening, friends. Today, it's your last class of MSO 001. We will be dealing with Block 8, Issues of Modernity. In Issues of Modernity, there are 3 units, that is Tradition and Modernity. Second one is Theories of Modernity. Third one is Post-Modernity and Post-Structuralism. I will begin with Tradition and Modernity and will try to understand what do you mean by tradition, what do we mean by modernity, what are the theories behind tradition and modernity, how can we understand whether there is a clear-cut line between tradition or modernity or they are interlinked. In the second part, I will talk about the theories of modernization, how the process of modernity actually happens. That process or the way modernization is taking place, we need to understand various aspects of the term or the concept linked to it. So, here we will discuss about some theoretical aspects of modernization, and I will try to give some examples in the Indian context. And in the last part, we will be dealing about postmodernism and post-structuralism. So, let's begin with tradition and modernity. Throughout our classes, beginning from block 1, we are here in the last stage of our class, that is block 8. We are making sense of various concepts used in sociological theories, as well as we are also trying to find out the theoretical meanings attached to those concepts. So, when we try to understand theories, we basically try to understand or explain the concepts either philosophically or scientifically, but not going out of the social context. So when I am talking about modernity and tradition and modernity, something will happen. We will try to understand these two concepts from our own social point of view. Let's begin with the meanings of tradition and modernity. So in common parlance, the term tradition and modernity suggests a distinction between the old and the new. That means when someone is saying that I am traditional, that means he is saying that he belongs to a family who believe in some old themes, old philosophy, old thinking. Then who termed that his thinking is old? Those who usually don't believe just like him, they think that the first person's thinking process is old in comparison to my own thinking process. Hence, at first sight, we basically thought that tradition is different from modernity. Tradition represents some old structure. Modernity represents some new structure. For example, when I say that my parents are very orthodox, what does this mean? This means they believe in something that is not acceptable in our time. We think they are orthodox, they are not progressive. On the other hand, we think we have a different way of thinking from them in comparison to them. What we think, they might not have thought like that. What we are experiencing, they might not have experienced at that time. So society changes. So when we talk about tradition and modernity as a two contradictory term or concept, we basically make an analogy, a value judgment we basically do with these two things, that is historical and the present context. And we think history is old and present is very much progressive. This is the distinction we made in general language. So we basically talk about two differing attitudes towards the negotiation of change. We are saying, when we are saying the history represents all things, we are saying that society has passed that history. That means in the process of change, we have progressed a lot in comparison to our past. So there were two types of negotiation in account of social change. One, some will try to protect the traditional or old aspect. Some will try to go out of that traditional belief system. So those negotiating attitudes are resistance towards tradition, acceptance towards some modern things. In recent years, the concept have come to replace a host of similar terms employed as polarities of crucial historical process. That means when we talk about social change or social evolution throughout history, we basically make a comparison between two ways of life or two ways of thinking process. Here we will discuss about Toyn's Geminism and Gesellschaft, because till now I have not talked about these two concepts. So today I thought I must make you answerable. I must make you understand about these two concepts. What is Geminism and Gesellschaft? I am making this analysis to make you an understanding between tradition and modernity, because I think Geminism represents tradition while Gesellschaft represents modernity. So I took the references of the ideas of Ferdinand Tönnies, how he perceives Geminism and Gesellschaft, and tries to make an analogy with tradition and modernity. So when I am talking about Geminism, I basically refers to the basic social relations which are formed through kinship, friendship with neighbors or with fellow beings or companions. That means it refers to the primary relationship that attached with a subject, that talks about the kinship friendship. Kinship friendship, my relation with neighborhood, all those things within a micro system. That means I am dealing with my own society, the place where I am living. I am dealing with my friends. I am dealing with my neighbors. I am talking about my family. So I am very much particular here. So the basic institutions are family law, which is characterized by paternal supremacy, because my society is patriarchal. My society believes that males are superior in comparison to females. Females are subordinate to them because our society is patriarchal. So when I talk about family, I basically talk about the process, alliance or descent, whatever it may be, from the paternal point of view or from the male's point of view. Here we see the development of lasting ties to the land and the home. That means we are talking about our nativity. I am attached, I am born in a place that is my motherland, both of which constitute the most characteristics form of wealth. That means when I am saying I am born into this family, definitely in due course of time, I will be the owner of the property attached to this family. The order with which institutions are followed are family-like. That means when we talk about family life, we talk about family system, our marriage, our ritual practices, or passage of life. Then life within the framing of village, how I reside in a village. So it refers to the rural aspects of our life. So Gemini Sap is known as community or samudaya. So the type of social control practiced in these communities aims at creating and maintaining harmony, customs, traditions, as well as religious rules which prevails among the social relations. That means we are very much guided and coerced by the society where we live. We have to follow societal norms. We have to follow societal rules, all those things. So when Tony talk about Gemini Sap, he is talking about the village community or community per se. Then he shifts to Jessel Sap. He is making a micro analysis. He is saying within Jessel Sap, there are exchange and logical evaluation, while basic institutions are political institutions and the capitalist economy. In Gemini Sap, family was the basic institution or community was the basic institution. But in Jessel Sap, there is a transformation. We transform to a community or we transform to a life system where the relation is based on politics or economy. So Jessel Sap refers to the superstructure that refers to the modern lifestyle. The most typical form of wealth is monetary, while law of contract and an urban cosmopolitan way of life based on logical reasoning prevail. That means here we are guided by a meaning based on logic and rationality. We are guided by individualism. We are guided by an organic system of organic way of life where no one is self-sufficient, rather are dependent upon others. So our social structure is very much organic in nature. In the same manner, we have already talked about Durkheim's mechanical and organic solidarity. According to Durkheimian point of view, mechanical solidarity is represented by tradition and organic solidarity is represented by modernity. Then we have also talked about Marx and Engels' feudal agricultural system versus bourgeoisie industrial society, where we talked about two types of class structure and we basically talked about those class systems are based on a struggle between the haves and have-nots. In this analysis of Marx and Engels, When we talk about the society, we talk about the village society at a particular level. When we shifted to the industrial life, we talk about modernity. In the same manner, Robert Redfield's analysis, we talk about urban folk versus urban metropolitan culture. Folk here refers to general people, their tradition, their belief system, everything. While urban metropolitan culture is something based on rational feeling, not on your subjective or conscious interconnectedness based on your some sorts of belief beginning from religion to clan. But in urban metropolitan society, relationship is based on an organic system where everyone is dependent upon other, but not in personal manner, but in a very objective way, where we form an urban metropolitan culture. We have different way of lifestyle, we have different way of belief system, we have different way of cultural systems. So tradition refers to a body of knowledge that has a structure, inventory of action, and ideologies that compromise its legitimate domains. That means, from the above analysis, we are clear that it is a structure where action and ideology, the action means what people are doing, and ideology means what people believe. Our action is guided by our belief system. We are guided by a cultural pattern which is very much related to our historical perspectives. So in traditionalism, we can see the involvement of various different types of activities and need some brief elaboration. Tradition thus encompasses and embodies certain criteria or activities. Those are a particular process of legacy, a historical aspect, a certain concept of supernatural, a aspects of indigenous art and facts of architecture, military for self-defense. First form we have already understood. But what is military for self-defense? People are trying to protect themselves from the outside invaders. They are forming a military base. Military means weapon. They are forming various protective self-defense mechanisms, what we call as military. In traditional societies, people created those artilleries not because to dominate over others, but because to protect themselves from the outsiders. So that time the military system is very much protective for the individual concern and not destructive for the society. So what is modernity then? It refers to the stage of a society that is more developed in comparison to the earlier. That means what we have learned in tradition is different here in modernity. We believe in ethos of capitalism, where capitalism dominates over our religious system, over our traditional belief system. So capitalism or wealth guides us. It is a model to overall world development. When we talk about development in modern sense, we talk about the capitalistic mode of production that is linked to the concept called development. When a society is attached to this idea, that society is known as a modern society. So what are the features or characteristics of that modern society? It refers to the certain features like emergence of nation state. Last class we talked about it, nation state. Then industrialization and capitalization. We had also talked about this rise of democracy, technological innovation, increase in mass media. Mass media here refers to your print media, your visual media. In Western sense, modernity refers to Renaissance and Enlightenment. That means they challenged the supremacy of religion and think of science as the ultimate solution. So, in the Western concept or Western sense, modernity is attached to Renaissance and Enlightenment, Reformation and Counter-Reformation, French Revolution, American Revolution, and Industrial Revolution. So, whenever you talk about these concepts, you are talking about the Western meaning of modernity. So, let's try to understand modernity from sociological point of view, how we can understand what is modernity. According to sociological point of view, modernity has certain aspects like disenchantment of the world, rationalization, mass society, secularization, democratization, cultural crystallization. Let's understand these concepts clearly. What is disenchantment of the world? It emphasizes the oppressed role of science and religion in modern society. For example, we say we are modern because no more we are attached to our ritual practices, belief systems, or religion, but accepting which is scientifically proved. So we are getting away from the religious or traditional belief system to a belief system that is acceptable by all based on experimentation, observation, philosophy, that is science. So this is refers to the disenchantment of the world. Then comes rationalization. We are thinking or we are saying it is a way of describing, interpreting, or explaining something that makes it seem proper and more attractive. For example, when I say that we must maintain hygiene in society, it is acceptable by all because you are now experiencing that the importance of hygiene is very much needed in such pandemics, because the more you will maintain hygiene, the more you will be safe or you will put under safety. So we believe in those things which are acceptable by all. We believe in those things which are scientifically proved. So rationalization refers to our describing, interpreting, and explaining something that is acceptable by all and everyone accept them easily without question. It is a proper fact. Then comes mass society. What is mass society? Modern industrialized urbanized society marked by anonymity, high mobility, lack of individuality, and a general dominance of interpersonal or impersonal relationship. That means people are very much dependent upon others. They are no more self-sufficient. They are bound, they are forced, they are governed by certain rules and regulations that is acceptable to all, and it is marked by high sense of mobility. There is competition. There is a sense of individualism. There is a sense of impersonal relationship, that means compromise with your individualism. Because if you will be very much individualistic, then definitely no one will like you. So mass society is governed by a society where everyone is dependent upon others, and there is a sense of we-ness, and none is perfect. Then comes secularization, the act or process of removing escalatical or serial use of influence, challenging and separating religion from politics. That means we are separating the supernatural forces from our political system. We are saying that religion has no play in our life, rather it is very much subjective and within the four walls. That means we make religion as a personal phenomena, and getting out of that, we are trying to differentiate the whole society from the dominance of religion, that is called as secularization. Then comes democratization. That means people are the power holder. They choose their own government. They frame their own way of life. They think we the people. They think we have the authority. They think it's by the people, for the people. Then comes cultural crystallization. It is a very new and interesting concept. What is cultural crystallization? Crystallization, that means mixing. In the absence of these certainties of natural law or notion of divine right, modernity substitutes human history for natural history. In this shift, evolution becomes more a matter of culturally shaped. That means when we try to understand the hegemonic difference or the paradigm shift between our past and present situation, we are making an culturological analysis. We are not going away from the culture that we are attached to. Rather, we are trying to transcend that culture previously, which has a very dominant role, with the modifications to the culture that happens now because of science and nationalism. So we are making a clear-cut or visible analysis of the whole process of evolution, and that whole process of evolution is very much cultural centric. So let's talk about the approaches of modernity. Charles Taylor has given two approaches regarding the concept of modernity. One is cultural approach and the other one is a cultural approach. What is cultural approach? It looks at the differences in the contemporary Western society and culture and medieval Europe as similar to the difference between medieval Europe and medieval India. That means when they are using the concept medieval Europe, they try to understand the traditional system from where there were French Revolution, Enlightenment, and all those things. So they try to analyze, make an analysis or comparison between the Western society and the medieval Europe with medieval Europe and Indian society. So when they are making an analysis of such type, they are talking about the multicultural system, basically language, religion, morality, and so on. That means they are trying to understand the shift From history to present, through the culturological terms like language, like religion, like psychological feeling, and morality. According to this theory, cultural approach or theory, each culture represents its own language and cultural practices which are not comparable to other culture. That means what we are saying traditional or what we are saying historical in nature, they have their own benefit for that time. And what we are saying modern, it has that benefit for our present time. But we cannot say that tradition is bad and modernity is good. So culture represents its own language and cultural system to may vary on the basis of time. And so this model first describes culture, then discuss about the transformation that led to the formation of a new culture. For example, earlier society, when we are talking about Indian society, we argue that in India, we have a traditional way of or traditional sense of clothing. We believe to think that females usually wear those clothes that cover their body as a whole, and males usually clothed with those things or those clothes which are covering them from neck to bottom. So what we are saying? We are saying our traditional way of dressing is sari or chudidar to kurta and Punjabi. But what is our modern sense of dressing sense? Now, females are using pants, jeans pants, beggar jeans, hot pant, t-shirts, tops, plazo, which are different from our traditional dress. Males are using knickers, jeans pant, t-shirts, or sometimes some different pattern of other things that are very much different from our traditional dressing sense. So when we talk about cultural approach of modernity, we try to make a comparison with the dressing sense as found in the earlier society with that of the dressing sense that took place nowadays. Then comes a cultural process. Here, the change involves the end of one type of traditional society and the coming into being of modern society. They say what is past is past. Let's move forward. A cultural approach means it does not study the existing culture to understand modernity, rather it discusses about the progress of change a traditional society will undergo to bring about modernity. That means they are saying we have to understand how a traditional society has undergone change. We will not discuss about what are the criteria or characteristics of the traditional society. Rather, we have to understand the changes, those parts which have already changed because of the concept modernity. It concepts modernity as the rise of reason in different ways, such as the growth of scientific consciousness, development of secular thought, instrumentation, rationalism, and fact-finding. For example, let's understand a cultural approach. What I said, it does not discuss about the traditional culture. Rather, it talks about the changes that happens to the traditional culture. For example, in the earlier society, when we talk about communication facility, we thought that walking is the best method of communication. We have no modern sense of communication. That happens to traditional society. But now, when we try to understand that changes, what we found in modern society, that pakka roads, railways, telephone, TV, all those things, we definitely say that these are the modern sense of communication that negate or get away from the past way of problems that people were facing. So they are not talking that what type of culture the traditional society has, rather they are talking that how changes occur to the traditional culture. So there is always a debate between who continue to see contemporary society as a modern world and who argue that a substantial change has taken place in recent years, or how we have moved into a new postmodern world. Then, when we talk about the debate, we also think that host of social changes are fundamentally altering our world, and traditional class politics and third in progress are being replaced by identity politics, new social movements, all those things. That means we make a comparison between the cultural patterns found in traditional society with that of cultural pattern found in modern society. So how we are saying modern society? We are saying a society very much influenced by capitalist way of thinking or capitalist mode of production. It has class identity. It has an identity, something new from the traditional identity or different from the traditional identity. Here, politics, wealth dominates over the tradition. Here, science dominates over tradition. So, how Anthony Giddens tried to understand modernity? That means we are here in the theoretical approach of modernity. Anthony Giddens has argued that modernity is a juggernaut. What does that juggernaut mean? It means a powerful force. For Anthony Giddens, in order to understand and conceptualize contemporary society, you know, a new sociological theory capable of grasping its complexity is required. That means he is saying that the modern society is such powerful that a powerful theory is needed to understand that powerfulness of the modern society. So he argued the juggernaut represents a powerfulness, and modernity in the form of a juggernaut is extremely dynamic. It is not static. It is a runway world with great leaps in the pace, scope, profoundness of change of our prior system. People are moving in a direction, how to capture wealth, how to dominate on other, how to maintain peace if there is chaos, how to exercise power, all those things. A situation where there is hodgepodge, people are very much complex. That means he is saying the modern society is a complex society. It is very much power. It has very much power, which gives opportunity to all. Everyone is there on the basis of competition. So he argued modernity in basic for institutions on which we can characterize that. The first institution is capitalism. That means commodity of production or commodity production, private ownership, capital property, less wage labor, a class system derived from these characteristics. That means he is saying the modernity, when we talk about modernity, we are talking about a capitalist system where there are two types of classes. One class has all the means of production, while the other have no such things. And the second is industrialization. What is industrialization? It involves the use of inanimate power, that means machine power, and replace of human labor. That means we use modern sense of transportation, communication, everything. You will find in Japan, there are hotels where there were no hotel boys. Robots are serving people. So what is that? That is, according to Giddens, replacement of human labor by machine. So he is saying the second characteristics of modernity is industrialism, where industry replaces human labor or traditional pattern of lifestyle. Then comes the surveillance capacity. That means we are keeping an eye on everyone, what someone is doing, how he is doing, whether he is there to torture me or something like that. We are in a surveillance. That means we are keeping an eye on everyone. We are following everyone. So it defines the supervision of the activities of subject population or on whom we are attached to. For example, you will find there are CCTV cameras, spy cameras, there are drones and various things as surveillance system which are making or supervising our movements. The fourth one is military power. So according to Giddens, modernity is attached to military power or controlling on the basis of violence and various artilleries produced by the industries. So military power is the fourth category or fourth characteristics of modernity. You see, we assume that America, Russia, and China, they are very much powerful because they have a good sense of military power. So whenever they like, they can control others. They try to exercise their power over non-military or less military countries. So modernity is a Western phenomena attached to capitalism, industrialization, and surveillance system and the military power. So it should be noted that at the macro level, Giddens focuses on the nation state rather than the more conventional sociological focus on society. So now, as we have already understood what is tradition and modernity, let's move to the process of modernity, that is modernization. How society changes. So modernization is a process of rationalization that we have already understood, that we are not accepting anything easily. Rather, we are engaged in a debate. We try to observe, experiment, and come to a conclusion that should be the perfect one. So rationalization with a scientific temper, and it involves the total population. That means the whole population is undergoing a change of rationalization. It brings about changes in the thought process, in their belief system, in their faith, or in their sociocultural structure. So here you will find that people in a mass scale are modernizing themselves. So when we talk about India, we basically try to understand that those who are living in villages, they represent some aspects of traditionalism, but those who are in the town, they represent modernity. However, in the Indian context, this is completely wrong if we sociologically analyze that, because there is an overlap of tradition with modernity. In the villages, you will find the characteristics of modernity as well as tradition, and in town, you will find those who are claiming themselves to be modern are also traditional in some sorts. So, in Indian context, you will find there is an overlapping position. So, Let's understand what is modernization. Modernization, the English term, is derived from a Latin term called modo, which means just now or the latest. You must have seen that various serials are going on where the villains are saying this is latest. What they are saying? They are saying that is something new. So when we talk about the latest, we talk about modernization. So modernization as a historical process with continuity involves industrialization, urbanization, rationalization, bureaucratization, democratization, secularization, sanskritization, tribalization, and everything based on reasoning with scientific temper and outlook. We are no more subjective in sense. We are accepting which is who or which will be acceptable by all. So we are making a rational or a scientific analysis to understand the present society. We are negating the supremacy of religion. We are negating the supremacy of traditional ethos. We are accepting something very much related or influenced or proved by science. So Professor Y. Singh, Jogendra Singh, who was my professor at JNU, has written a book, Modernization of Indian Tradition, where he mentioned that modernization symbolizes a rational attitude towards issues and their evaluation from universalistic and not particularistic point of view. That means he is trying to show modernization is something that is represented by all, acceptable by all. That is the view of all, not a single person. So, application of scientific knowledge to meet human requirements is also another aspect of modernization. We are trying to fulfill our needs by taking help of science. For example, due to pandemics, you were at your home and I am at my home, but we are engaged in the teaching process irrespective of the absence of classroom. Still, because of science, it is possible in our part to teach you and you are there to learn. In spite of losing your valuable times or you are missing your class, yet you are trying to understand things, you are trying to understand theories, you are trying to clarify your understanding process, you are trying to fulfill your academic criteria because of this scientific invention called the internet. So modernization is fulfilling our need for scientific interference. From psychological point of view, modernization brings about changes in individuals' motivation, temperament, attitude, personality, and role perception. For example, because of modernization, we are now changed. Earlier, when I used to be in an university before this pandemic, my students usually instead of saying good morning sir or hi sir, they used to say pranam. But now you feel you were there, you are not greeting, but you are attending classes without any greet. Sometimes you may say hi sir, how are you? Or you may say bye sir. But in our time, in our child days, I have the very good sense of thinking that what you may say traditional, that we touch the feet of our teachers and we are very much obliged to their orders. That is replaced by another type of psychological motive that is called as high culture, high and by. No more teacher is treated as a teacher rather as a friend. So what modernity has brought about, there is a change in your psychological understanding. No one is accepting the traditional way of greetings or giving respect to the teachers, but they are very much self-centric and they utilize their teacher for gaining marks, for gaining some influence, all those things. So, what are the dimensions of modernization? Smeltzer argued that Smeltzer argued modernization is the effect of economy and related institution on overall social structure. That means he is saying the same thing that economics or economy or wealth dominates over social things. So modernization process differs on the basis of time. As time changes, the criteria of modernization also changes. There is another thinker called Rostow, who argued that it is the duty of the Western countries or developed countries to help the underdeveloped countries, because he thinks that underdeveloped countries are culturally backward. So development is not possible in those countries. So he has given a model which consists of 5 stages. Stage 1, where traditional societies whose economies are dominated by subsistence of farming is replaced with modern system, because in farming there is little wealth to invest. In the stage 2, preconditions for takeoff. That means he says in stage 2 there occurs an option in the path that people try to get out of that old tradition of farming. They are using science and technology, infrastructure and industry. In the stage 3, he argued this is the take-off stage. That means people were progressed. The society experienced economic growth and new modern practices. And this generate wealth in comparison to the previous stages. In the stage 4, it is called, according to him, as the maturity stage, where more economic growth and investment in education, media, and birth control are utilized. So population start to realize new opportunities opening up and strive to make the most of their lives. People are trying to understand how they can challenge any odd in life. In the 5th stage, the age of high mass consumption. That means production is lessened, but because of demand, there is mass consumption. People have wealth. They are trying to consume more and more. And these things happen because of the help from the West. So let's come to the last point, that is post-structuralism and postmodernism. Let's try to make an overall analysis. So because in your book there is no clear-cut distinction, so I am trying according to your book to make you understand. So let's understand about post-structuralism and postmodernism. It is a mode of critical thinking and analysis that joined disciplinary conversations during the 1980s, an era referred to as the period of the third debate. That means they are challenging each and every aspect of life. They are trying to understand the power relation. They are trying to understand, or they are trying to object or deconstruct everything that was in the earlier society. So they tried to make an analysis between the agent and structure, something new. They try to make it understand how agent is influenced by structure and structure is also influenced by agents. So what they are trying is taking help from the traditional structuralists like Suzere and Levi-Strauss. They are trying to explain something more. They are questioning what and how. So what are the common assumptions and themes of post-structuralism or postmodernism? The radical questioning of ontological essentialism and epistemological foundationalism in social and political thought and analysis. They are trying or questioning the previous way of thinking, the previous way of knowledge, everything. They are interrogating that what you are saying is true, prove it. What you are doing is truth, prove it. They are constantly making a challenge with the established knowledge system. They try to deconstruct the texts. They reject the notion that nature of things are defined by universal atmosphere qualities. Rather, they assert that the impossibility of a pre-given and self-determining system. They negate that nature is not responsible. It is the human being who is responsible for his own condition. They think of possibility of providing universal ground and absolute justification of truth claims. They try that we must not believe what is given to us. Rather, we must believe by questioning and coming to the conclusion, abandoning the enlightenment optimism about the possibility of achieving objective knowledge and phenomena through the use of regime, post-structuralism, and modern approaches claim that knowledge constructor is one object of study. What you are saying may be scientific, but how can I achieve that? That may not be scientific for me. So I am challenging you. For example, what I have taught in my books may not be acceptable by me. I may question the existence, the theories, all those things. I say, why should I believe? Because my belief system is something different. If you are saying 2 to the power 3 or 2q is equal to 8, I may not accept. I will say, why should I multiply? I may use addition. So this is the difference between previous structuralist or modern theories with postmodernism. So what they are doing, they are constantly challenging the objective tendency of the people in modernity and structurality. They are saying objectivity is concerned with the subject involved. So the thematic understanding of post-structuralism and postmodernism includes subject and subjectivity, how subject is created and how his inner qualities are created. They are saying that subject is the point of departure and the subject itself questions and attends to the way in which human beings are produced, particularly in a political system. That means the subject is constantly interrogating himself. Then comes the language, how we use language. So we, as you know, we use language to express ourselves. But according to these theories, language is a symbol of power. It constructs the society according to the dominance of those thinkers who try to bestow their ideology upon us. So then comes the text and the representation, how the books that we have learned or we are learning are presenting an ideology, and we need to question those ideologies. We must not accept, though we cannot negate them, but we can question the theories mentioned in the text, because earlier the text were framed by the powerful people to utopize their ideology. Then comes deconstruction given by Jacques Derrida. He deconstructs, he challenges, he tries to totally abolish what is already given to us. Rather, he is trying to deconstruct our thinking process by constantly bringing about a binary between two things in each and every aspect. For example, the binary between meaning and form, the binary between soul and body, the binary between literal and metaphorical, the binary between nature and culture. Then what is power for them? Power, as defined by Foucault, is the immense influence of an approach in international relations. It refers to new historism. According to Michael Foucault, discursive formation is a central concept to understand the genealogy of power. For example, we can only understand power by going through a constant analysis from historical point of view. So he is saying that knowledge is power and we need to exercise our knowledge and should try to understand the whole process of knowledge making. So these are the things that we have understood throughout the MSO 001. If there are some doubts, you can consult me over my WhatsApp that I have already given you or circulated with you, my number. So as we are constrained by time, so we are not actually making properly a clarification of each and every concepts, because within 8 days we have to complete 32 chapters. So we have certain constraints upon time. However, personally I can help you. So consult me over my WhatsApp number. That's not an issue, but in free time. Thank you for being with me for last 8 days. I think I have tried my best to make you understand or make you familiar with all those concepts as we have learned till now. See you soon